Good evening and welcome to another episode of Unscripted and Unchained RPG Review. I am DM Bloodworth, and as you can see by the graphics, today I'm making my return to the video series Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition modules. And today I'm going to focus on I2, Tomb of the Lizard King. Now, before I get into the introduction here, I just want to thank all of the veterans out there. This being Veterans Day, and as you can see, I'm a veteran myself, and um, it always strikes me as kind of an awkward moment when someone thanks me for my service, and I always struggle with how to respond. Whether to say thank you or just not, or if I know that person's a veteran as well, I always extend, the thank you for your service as well. Um, yeah, and it's a day that we should not forget those who have served, and I've argued with some who seem to believe that even though they were enlisted, they were not sent overseas, or they served during a time period of a peacetime period, and so they were reluctant to consider themselves veterans. And you know, I'm emphatic on the point, making that if you signed an enlistment contract, you signed up for the possibility of being deployed. You put your name out there. You placed yourself at risk, and even if you weren't deployed, your service to the country, and that's any country's service. Your service to the country is not just only during times of war. It's during times of peace, because without the armed forces there, there wouldn't be a peacetime. Basically, there wouldn't be that safety net for the rest of us civilians to experience the freedoms and the safety that we have. So whether you served in a whether you were served in an actual conflict, or you were stateside and supplying them, or giving them material support during the conflict, the point is that you're a veteran. You put yourself out there to serve your nation, and so once again, thank you for your service. And my response, from now on, I just try to remember it all the time, because it is an awkward thing, at least for me, is when someone thanks me, I always respond now, or try to. It was my pleasure to serve. All right. And so without further ado, let's get back to the module at hand. So Tomb of the Lizard King is a module that I hold, near and dear, because it's one of the first adventures that I think I DM'd, and it's a challenging adventure, so I really like that about it. And in my early years of playing D&D, I was really into lizard men, so I even played really early on in like 1979 or 1980. I actually played a lizard man fighter. My DM allowed us to choose sometimes, whatever we wanted to play, and he just built rules around it. So I played a lizard man fighter, inspired by the lizard man drawing in the Monster Manual 1, and then this came along, and then there's another module that's one of my favorite as well, and that's the Cult of the Reptile God, which I will get to in this series as well. So this was one that I was really into, and now we'll step over to the PDF to show you what I found to be so interesting with this particular adventure. So this is an adventure module for characters levels 5 through 7. And with most of the official AD&D modules, you're usually better off being closer to the top end of that level range than the bottom end, particularly this one, because this is a challenging adventure. It is going to test your characters and your players' abilities to work together and to play very smartly. So it's a great follow-up to my last video of Tomb of Horrors, which is very similar. Now, this is not as dangerous as that. However, if you try to, if you don't approach this module smartly, your player characters are probably not going to survive. So you have to be bright. Once again, I'm not going to spoil anything, or at least try not to spoil anything. So we have The Tomb of the Lizard King by Mark Akers. I did a little research into Mark Akers, and this is the only first edition adventure he wrote, and then he wrote another one later on, probably during the time frame of second edition, because I believe the second module he wrote in 1990. So he did not write very many adventures at all, and he wasn't with TSR for a very long time. He had shifted over to a different company, along with a number of other individuals around 84-ish, I believe. So, The Tomb of the Lizard King. If the brigands who are raiding the land of Eor are only brigands, why are merchants so terrified? And what are these rumors that are whispered amongst frightened villagers? Rumors of an old, enormously evil power that lies behind a series of robberies. The Count of Or wants your party to get to the truth. So one thing about the setting, so it was originally written to be setting neutral, but then later on in either a Dragon magazine or in another article that was kind of establishing the lore of Greyhawk, this ends up being a small portion of the kingdom of Keoland, I believe. So it does eventually set this adventure into the world of Greyhawk. So the introduction, and I will make this a little bit larger so you can also read along. I just highlighted sections that I think were the most important. So, disturbing reports of highway robbery have reached the palace at Vendare, the major city of Eor, and you can always change the names of those for your own game setting. 3 weeks ago, the Count sent a squad of 30 fighting men to the affected area near the small village of Wacombe. So far, there has been no report, no message, no rider, not even a rumor of their fate. Those who answer this call can expect danger, also great reward, for the Count is known as a generous man who rewards his loyal subjects well. All right, so this is kind of setting the scene that the players are going to be informed of, or they may discover, through rumors that 30 men-at-arms have been sent out and never heard from again. So they're going to want to be well prepared for this adventure coming up. So notes for the Dungeon Master. I'm not going to get too detailed here. Sakatha, the great lizard king, is one of the stranger beings ever to challenge the wits and courage of the party of adventurers. It is he who is behind the highway robbery and the south, although he is no mere brigand. So, and I would, as a DM, like have the have the players, if they're really looking for rumors and such, to get little shades of information about the history of the region that they're about to go into. And Sakatha would certainly come up in that long storied history. Um, and so it's not that big of a deal uh, to reveal some of this to the players. So Sakatha came to rule supreme over the lizard men of the Great Southern Swamp. His armies in a time extended his rule over the men by the Ardo, which is the river. And at one time, he actually ruled a slave population in all that is now Yor. So he at one time ruled this region that the characters are now in. So there's definitely going to be some revealing of this former ruler, former great power. And so you could start to sow the seeds in their minds that that somehow this power has returned in some way. Adventuring characters, this module is specifically designed for a party of 7 to 9 characters, varying levels from 5th to 7th level. All right, so large party group that it's asking for, even at this, so if you have level 5 characters, it's saying you should send 9 of them. So it's a large party situation here. And then if they're the upper level, 7th, then you should still have 7 of them, which is still a very powerful party. So there's no, there's no deception being laid here. The players should be able to understand that this is not a joke of an adventure. It is very important that the party balance good fighting ability with a strong spellcasting ability. Clerics will be especially important in this adventure. However, under no circumstances should a dungeon master allow any cleric of greater than 7th level to participate, as this would seriously unbalance the climactic encounter. All right, so and you could probably start to think of reasons why an 8th level cleric or higher uh, should be prohibited from this adventure. Special warning: before beginning play, the dungeon master should warn his players that this particular module is extremely hazardous. It is specifically designed to put characters of specified levels to a severe test. Success in this adventure will require that the party exercise the utmost caution with a great deal and still be ready to hack and slash against powerful opponents. Some players may not want to risk their favorite characters in an adventure of this difficulty. All right, and so the adventure does supply a list of pre-gens to use for this. This was originally written as a convention game, and it ran in 1980. I believe Origins 1980, and so it was then later converted to a regular adventure module, and it's quite long. Um, it's quite long in that it's still the full 36-page adventure, which seems to be roughly the standard, at the time, but it's a full 36 pages of just a lot of, action and intrigue and such. So you can go through the private meetings. So the characters are actually, it doesn't start in a tavern. They're actually hired by the count, and to investigate what's going on here, since the 30 men at arms have disappeared without any trace. And the players might have actually discovered that before they met with the count, or certainly probably afterwards. And it might impact the way that they want to negotiate with the count, whether they take this job or not. Journey to Wakehome. Like I said, I'm doing spoiler free here, just showing some of the artwork, but I'm not going to get into any of the details now that you know that there's probably a black dragon in this. But you're going into a swamp, so you kind of would expect a variety of swamp type creatures. And considering the size of your party and the number of your party, it's not that big of a reveal that you might encounter a black dragon. So here's the lands that you're dealing with. And again, you can always change the location. I'm going to come upon a pretty iconic image. I like this one here. That's pretty cool. This is a very well-known image. Just an AD&D image out there. So this is Sakatha. And I will skip over this here. So here's the pre-gens. So you have a 7th level fighter, 5th level fighter, 7th level cleric, a 6th level cleric, a fighter magic user 5/7. That's pretty darn powerful. An elf on top of that, a half elf cleric 5, magic user 5, a magic user 7 human, and a halfling thief 7. All right, so these are the characters 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this could be the party that you're playing with, and you can see that they're going to have a variety of, you have your two fighter types here. You have 3 clerics, basically a 7th, a 6th, and a 5th. You have a fighter magic user, so that's your 3rd fighter with some magic ability, and actually higher than, as high as your straight up magic user. Here you have another magic user with 5th level magic user, and then just 1 thief. So that's a pretty well balanced group, especially taking along 8 characters. They go here with their languages. And I can see here that Lizard Man, being 1, will be able to might become very useful here. So 2 in the party can speak Lizard Man language, which might come in handy. Magic items and spells. And so you can see a +1 sword, 9 life stealer with 2 uses left. That's a pretty major weapon. So they have the Horn of Valhalla, bronze, summons 2 to 8 4th level berserkers for 6 turns. Again, that's a game changer in a battle. You can imagine if you manage to roll all 8, and getting 4th level berserkers for 6 turns during a battle and having 8 of them, that's pretty substantial. A scroll with remove curse and find traps. Splint mail +3, so going to be very high armor class here. A good listing of spells. Arrows +3, 10 of them. Longsword +2, plate mail +2, ring of fire resistance. +1 flame tongue, +2 versus regenerating creatures, +3 versus cold using inflammable or avian creatures, +4 versus undead. Major use, major, very powerful weapon that Hanar has. And if you're creating your own characters for this, or you have your own adventure party, you're going to want them to have similar capabilities here, to what you have here as well. So they're going to need a good variety of magic items, and fairly powerful magic items. Some of these are, and I can tell by looking at some of these, even though it's been 35 plus years that I've seen this, that these magic items are kind of tailored to be effective in this adventure. So so it might be a good idea to test it out in in actual play using these. I lost my mouse, so I can't. There we go. So as you can see, this adventure is a lot of fun. It's very challenging. Designed, as you could see, for that pre-gen group of 8 characters. But if you want to bring your own characters, your players want to bring their own characters, I would encourage them to make sure that they are prepared for a great deal of a challenge, and make sure they have opportunities to have several magic items that are going to kind of play their way into the scenario that they're about to approach. Plus, very large group, 8 to 10, 8 characters or 9 characters, is a lot for AD&D First Edition. It's one of the largest character grouping suggestions that I've actually seen in quite some. Even Tomb of Horrors didn't have that many characters suggested. But Tomb of Horrors, and the difference with this here is that Tomb of Horrors was not going to have as much fighting involved, more puzzles and traps and those kinds of things, whereas this is going to be a little bit more balanced. And you can see in that party makeup with three and a half fighters, and 3 magic users and 3 clerics and 1 thief. There's a lot of firepower involved in that pre-gen grouping. So once again, thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. And right now, YouTube is down, so I'm not sure when this video is actually going to get posted. YouTube is down globally. So hopefully it's up by tomorrow morning. So this video might actually make a debut on whether it be BitChute or MeWe or someplace else other than YouTube, but it will certainly make its appearance on YouTube as well once that service is back up and running again. So again, thank you for joining. I hope to see you on the gaming screen sometime soon. maybe one day I'll get around to actually running a one shot and bringing a group of players through this adventure, because it is one of my favorite of all time. And again, just be safe out there and keep on gaming and just keep on, enjoying the hobby in the way that you enjoy to play it, whether it's old school or new school, whether it's online or, in person, just any way that you can bring new players into the hobby, which is another, really important thing for us to do. And if you're like me, kind of an old schooler, try to bring new players to the old system. Let them see how it plays out, and hopefully you'll get a few that will be like, hey, you know what? I like the rawness of first edition, or D&D, old D&D, or whether it be Beckme or any of second edition AD&D. Just try to introduce them to the older game editions, because there is a real difference between gaming mechanics, but also gaming style to the older games versus the newer as well. So again, thanks a lot for joining. You all take care.